This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, gents. Welcome to the high-risk recurrent advanced prostate cancer group on the 3rd of February, Monday, the 3rd of February. And if some of you guys are wondering why we do that now, it's to help Jake out so he knows which recording he's listening to. So he asked us if we would always announce what the meeting is up front. I'm going to list who I see. I've got a feeling I don't have everybody here, but let's try. Len Sierra, Dennis Correa, Joel Blanchette, Les Shelderup, Rich Jackson, Bill Franklin, Richard Foodie, Bill Franklin, Ken Anderson, and Bob Bordiger. Did I miss anybody? Peter Kafka. I knew there was somebody I missed. Anyone else? No one else? Okay, good. I'm glad I've got everybody. All right. We are going to start today with Richard Foodie, who's on to give us an update. And that way, Richard can leave whenever he wants. Because, guys, believe it or not, our intrepid Mr. Foodie is back to working full time, which is bloody amazing. Notwithstanding that he has now had 1 or 2 nivolumab infusions, Mr. Foodie.
2.
2. Okay. So for those of you who don't recall, and Richard can add anything in, I've been supporting Richard since around, I think, 2012, I think, something like that. Richard will tell you.
2013.
2013. And he had an amazing run on enzalutamide of 4 years.
4.5.
4.5 years.
You told him to correct you.
I did. It's okay. We'll get through it this way quickly. And sometime last year, he started to fail enzalutamide. And to make the story short, his disease had morphed. And we identified, and I should add that when the enzalutamide stopped, Richard did a lot of chemo. Did you ever do plain old docetaxel, or did you start with carboplatin and etoposide?
No, I started with cabazitaxel with prednisone and albuterol.
And then went on to carboplatin and etoposide, and then they found a lesion in his liver, which was small cell, and so Richard is now doing nivolumab. Now, one thing I do want to just point out that I sent to Len, because I was making use of my time in the waiting room at the orthopedic doctors today, and I read a couple of cases that Dr. O, Len's doctor, had written up for Euro Today. And the first case, while it was really about screening, didn't have a lot to do with you, did mention that they have noted in a minority of cases, but enough to make it notable, that men who are on long-term enzalutamide often, not often, Len may recall the actual percentage, but they do exhibit a suppressed PSA. So you can be on enzalutamide for a long time, and for a reason that they don't know the answer to, your PSA may not rise. And so that led him, Dr. O, into a discussion on what sort of screening you should be doing on men who are on enzalutamide. But I thought that was pretty interesting. You think so, Len?
I did, yeah. I don't remember the percentage either. I don't know, 25% is sticking in my head, but I'm not sure why.
Right.
Yeah, and he was recommending more frequent scanning. Also being, but he said technetium 99M, but he said that may not be sensitive enough to be picking up what's going on. So he was saying you may need to move to one of the more sensitive scans. So let's hope they get approved by the FDA sometime this year.
But it's something for us to remember if we have anybody who's as fortunate as Richard to get long time out of enzalutamide, that we have to remind them that they have to get regular scans because the PSA may not be a good measure for them. So with that, Richard, tell us a little bit about how you're doing on the nivolumab, Opdivo, and anything else.
Well, when I had my first treatment on January 17th, I was scared. And I was scared because when you read the medical information and they talk about all the side effects, possible side effects, it really freaked me out. And I never saw the word death used so many times in, like in a medical, document. So, and it didn't help that about a week earlier at a meeting, one of my teammates talked about how somebody that she knew received this nivolumab. I don't think I'm pronouncing it right, and as he's receiving it, his body starts vibrating, and he had trouble breathing, and his heart rate was going up, and they had to stop the treatment. And I thought, oh God, if this happens to me. So anyhow, that did not happen, and I've been very fortunate. I have not had side effects. However, with immunotherapy, side effects can occur at any time. And I've had chemo, and generally after having chemo, 2 or 3 days after the chemo, I'd start experiencing the side effects. But with immunotherapy, they can just pop up. And they even say that after you stop the treatment, even a year after you stop the treatment, you can have side effects. So, I'm not out of the woods in terms of side effects, but I've been very fortunate that I have not had it. The nurse that I had last Friday said she was really keeping a close eye on me, because she said sometimes it's the second or the third treatment where side effects pop up while you're getting the infusion. So I imagine in 2 weeks, February 14th, I'll be having infusion number 3. It's every 2 weeks, and we'll see. When I spoke to my oncologist, I said I feel really good. I feel happy, and I said I'm a little worried because since I haven't had any side effects, does that mean this isn't working? And she said, no, it's not everybody has side effects, and she said it can take upwards of 2 months for the immunotherapy to show signs of working. Now, I hadn't come across that before, but I guess, well, she had planned that I was going to have a follow-up testing in 6 to 8 weeks after the first session. So that's like end of March, beginning of April. We'll have CT scans to see if it's, and bone scans to see if this is working. But, it's, I'm sort of very thankful and grateful that I haven't had any side effects, but I'm sort of like, in my mind, I'm waiting for something to pop up. So it's my mind is my worst enemy right now, and how I'm dealing with this and processing this and worrying about it. So it's so my body's handling it well, but my mind is not. And so it's an interesting dilemma. But fortunately, I'm working, and so like 9 hours out of the day, I'm not really thinking about it. So that's helpful. Yeah, so you know, I believe that it's working today. I believe that I'm going to get better today. I feel good today, and I'm using the word today because some teammates reminded me that that's all I can think about is just today. So I try to, you know, stick to just thinking about how I feel today and what's going on today. So that's sort of it. I shared with Len and Rick some blood work that I had last week, and I was really worried about that when I saw it. When I saw the CEA numbers, you know, doubling in like less than 2 months, and and then another marker, chromogranin, was going down. And when I saw the number going up, I was really afraid that the cancer was just spreading throughout my body. But Len, you think that's not that the chromogranin is the important marker to pay attention to. The CEA is I just don't know why it's increasing that much, and my oncologist didn't say anything about why it was going up, but so that was kind of freaky. And,
Yeah, chromogranin A is specific for neuroendocrine as a biomarker. CEA is a more general biomarker, not specific for any particular type of cancer. It stands for carcinoma embryonic antigen. So, I mean, I'm even wondering, you no longer have, or at least neuroendocrine is no longer considered a carcinoma. So, well, it's an adenocarcinoma, prostate cancer. So in any case, I wouldn't worry too much about the CEA. I imagine Dr. Rathkoff will tell you the same thing. It's more, I think the chromogranin A is a better biomarker.
okay, yeah, thanks. So that made me feel really good today when I saw your email. I felt a lot better.
Good.
Well, I just think you're doing amazingly well and holding on to this day at a time, which is very, very, very difficult to do. I mean, we several people on this call know and understand that is working for you, and we just hope that you can keep doing it. How are you managing putting in a full day? Are you getting any time to do your exercise with a full day's work?
No, I've not kept up with my exercise for the past 2 weeks. So the only exercise I've been doing regularly every day is a breathing exercise, because that takes about 10 minutes. But my physical exercises I haven't, and I feel it a little bit. But I do, if I'm not doing strength exercises, I'm walking, and so I'm walking at a good pace. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a workout, but I've got to get back into exercising. It's, you know, when you're going from like no work to part-time work, 4 hours a day, and then 8 hours a day, your whole, you know, like all of a sudden you don't have any time. And, you know, you have to reorganize or, you know, try to adjust and fit in exercise or fit in activities. And that's what I'm working on now is trying to fit it in and schedule it, and then do the schedule.
Right. Richard, would HR give you 6 hours a day, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. They don't, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm not sure how much HR knows about my medical condition, although I imagine when I was on disability or medical leave,
Yeah.
There was a company that was managing me called Unum. I'm not sure what it stands for, but they were managing my short-term disability claims, and as well as monitoring my situation.
Right.
And so they would report back to my supervisor and to HR. Now, I don't know how much information they could give them, but so.
No, I just think, look, you're not going to get a more empathetic employer than Memorial Sloan Kettering, Richard.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely huddle with them and see if you can get a schedule that works. And also this, the other situation that you mentioned where maybe the location of your desk isn't the greatest. I'd chat with them, and my guess is they're going to be pretty accommodating.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting here. My ego of all things is popping up and, saying I don't, I don't want them to know that I'm weak, that I've got a disease. I want them to think of me as being a vital employee. And so if I bring up the disease and hours and things like that, my mind is saying they're going to think less of me. And, that's what's going on in my head. I know it's not, well, that's what's going on in my head right now.
So let me throw that one open. There are probably some people who have some thoughts on that. Anybody like to offer some support to Richard on these issues around working and being treated at the same time?
Richard, this is Dennis Correa. I'm amazed at how well you are doing. And one of the things that helped me with my mind issues, where you're worrying every day or something about what's going, your things are going to pop up and you're going to have some of these side effects. And you said you were doing breathing exercises. Was that part of a meditation?
No, I have COPD with some emphysema, and these breathing exercises came from, you might have heard this name before, Donna Wilson.
Yep.
She's also the captain of the Dragon Boat team, and she's a fitness instructor that I've been seeing since 2014. So she gave me these breathing exercises. She had worked as an oncologist nurse in lung cancer in Boston, and she found that these exercises really helped improve people's lung activities.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you might want to try some meditation if you can find the time. I know, that's the other issue, but maybe 30 minutes a day. Maybe even you could download. There's lots of stuff on the internet, whether it's music and breathing, the simple music stuff, focusing on your breath and that type of thing. That might give you a little bit of help.
It's a good idea, Dennis. I'll look into that.
Sure.
Yeah, Richard, this is Bill Franklin. So you work at Memorial Sloan Kettering where?
I work as an office coordinator in the pulmonary service at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and I work for a doctor, and my job is to be the go-between patients and the doctor and the nurses.
Yeah, I know I work in a kind of a different organization, but our HR, as far as like asking for how many hours we want to work, of course, when they hire us, most people hire full time, right? But after a certain amount of time, you can ask to be a half-time employee or a part-time employee. You don't have to tell them anything about your medical condition. You can just say, in my currently in my life, I'd like to work, 30 hours a week instead of 40, and if you can do it financially, my company supports it. I don't know what your organization would do, but you don't tell them anything about your medical condition. It's just say, my current situation, I need to work 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, that's my organization. I don't know about yours, but they won't even ask us.
Yeah. There's a social worker in Prostate that I can reach out to, and
Right.
she's a social worker at the hospital, so I could ask her what she would think about that, and she would also be able to suggest how to approach it.
Yeah, of course you're only going to pay me for 30 hours a week, right?
Right. Yeah.
I wish I could work 30 and get paid for 40, but
Yeah.
I haven't found that company yet. I think it's a government job.
Or or you could work for 40 and get paid for 30. That's like when you're working for yourself.
There you go.
Or even get paid for 20, or even not get paid at all. Who else? Anyone else like to talk to Richard before we poll everybody?
I had a government job. I worked 80 hours a week and got paid for 40.
Yeah, but look where you were.
Yeah, look what it did for me. Yeah, got me way ahead.
You know, you were fixing the lavatories on the top of Haleakala there.
That's right.
So anyone else before we check it through with everybody? Or any questions about the nivolumab? Okay, well, Mr. Foodie, you are an inspiration to all of us. Please know that.
Well, thank you very much.
We are all doing whatever we do, sending vibes, praying. We're all sending you positive energy to get through. And don't hesitate to call Len or myself on anything. And see if you can't. I think the idea of touching base with the social worker and asking her for some guidance is great. If you can have somebody navigate you within the MSKCC system, that would be dynamite. That would be dynamite. You know, the other sympathetic ear is what's his name? Bill. What was his name? The guy who's the VP in Human Resources that I introduced you 2 years ago.
Bill Morgan.
Bill Morgan, right. You know, I think you could talk to him. He's going to be very empathetic too.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think he'll help you and he'll guide you. And you know, if you talk to him it can be off the record, and he's going to understand very well.
Yeah.
So that's another thought. Okay, so let me run down the list. Let me see who would like some time, and then we'll go from there. Len.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Len, anything?
Nothing from me, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dennis, anything for you?
No, thanks, Rick.
Joel Blanchette, anything you'd like to talk about today?
A couple of minutes.
Good. Okay. Les Shelderup, anything you'd like to talk about?
Just a few second update. Fine,
Okay,
thanks.
it doesn't have to be a few seconds. It's okay. Is it quiet on the Eastern Front?
No, it's not.
Okay, you're in. Bill Franklin, anything for you?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Ken Anderson, would you like to talk to us a little bit?
I'm on camera. Yeah, I can give an update.
Thank you. Bob Bordiga, anything you'd like to discuss with us today?
Yeah, I've got some new test results I want to talk about.
Okay. Peter.
Yes, I have a question I want some feedback on.
Okay. And Larry Fish, anything for you?
No, tonight I'm good, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. You can always change your mind, Mr. Fish. Okay. Did I check in with everybody? Okay. So why don't we start with Joel?
Yes, a quick comment for Peter. I met a lady 2 weeks ago that had just finished chemotherapy with breast cancer. And she had the ice cap. Met her in Miami Beach, and she had the ice cap. And she said that it was recommended to her that she wear it 1 hour before chemo, but she actually wore it 2 hours before chemo. And she was done with the chemo, and she had a full head of hair. So that's his plus for that ice cap.
Yeah, I thank you. It's a good. It doesn't say a lot. Well, it does say something about chemo on it, but it's really designed for migraines, made by a company in Canada, this thing. And so it's like $79 from Amazon.
Okay.
So I'm going to try it out, see what happens.
Okay, I wasn't aware there was for migraines. But
Hey,
anyway,
Peter, if it's for migraines, if you could share that information, I'd appreciate it. I have a family member that, and they've never tried that. So,
Yeah, just look up IceCap, ICEKAP. You can either Google directly or look on Amazon for it,
all right.
and they say it's great for migraines.
Peter, that reminds me that I've also heard that if you keep your nails in ice water, if you can tolerate it whilst you're getting the chemo, that it also helps you with your nails. Dennis and Ken, Dennis Correa, Ken Anderson, Richard Foodie, you guys have all done chemo. Do you have any tips for Peter, especially regarding hair or nails, etc.?
What I would say is, as hard as this is going to sound to do, exercise. You can exercise before the chemo. You can exercise after the chemo, but that will help keep your body functioning at at normal, so to speak. And I think that the more that your body is functioning normally, your body's better able to handle the poison that's in your body. So I didn't have a problem with my hair. I lost a little bit. My nails, instead of having like a red underneath my nails, it was white. It was like there was no blood under my nails. But when I would exercise and I'd finished exercising, it was like, wow, there's some color under my nails. So I think for me, my experience was exercising, and it could be walking, it could, particularly the day of and the day and right after. But get some strength exercising, like a good 40-50 minute workout, and a couple of times a week. And I think that will help you.
Great,
It sounds counterintuitive, but it helped me.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just Peter, I think on the exercise thing, people have actually been getting their chemo while they're on a treadmill. I don't know that that's offered too many places. There's supposedly benefits to that, but don't, try not to overdo it. I was trying to keep up the same level of exercise as I was going through the up periods and down periods with my chemo. And I think that might have been what contributed to me having my blood clots and that kind of thing, and ended up in the hospital. So I was just pushing a little too hard when I really wasn't feeling good. I thought maybe I'd feel better by doing it, and it didn't work. But when you can, do it, definitely.
Good.
Yeah, Peter, it can. I would second the exercise. When I did my chemo in 2017, I was remodeling a house. So I was pretty busy during that chemo phase, and I'd work, doing projects pretty much before and after. But I'd also say, I have neuropathy in my feet, and I was told prior to doing chemo to go ahead and, get some thick wool socks and soak them in water and slow down the stuff's, circulating through your feet would help with neuropathy. And of course, I asked my med onc here locally, and she said, no, it doesn't make any sense. But I wish I would have done it. I don't have neuropathy in my hands, but I did lose all my hair, which I didn't really care too much one way or the other. It came back shortly after the chemo, and it's actually thicker than it was. It's just white. So I would probably work. I mean, you could do your hair, of course, but I'd probably work on your feet also. And just a thick pair of wool socks, dunk them in water and freeze them overnight and put them on your feet.
Good idea.
Okay. I have posted the IceCap link in the chat window, Bill. So you've probably found it already, but for everyone else, it's there.
I actually found the same one that Peter had on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Okay, Joel, anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I took a PSA this morning to establish a baseline before taking my radiation. I did have my first session of SBRT today in my left iliac bone. I could, and maybe this is too much detail, but they put me down on the table and they said, okay, we're going to get an x-ray of you now with the TrueBeam machine, make sure you're lined up correctly. And then all of a sudden I felt some pressure on my left iliac bone from the radiation. And that lasted about 3 minutes or so. And the machine whirled around me a couple of times and it made some noise. Then it was all over. And didn't notice anything until about an hour ago, about an hour before we signed in with you. I started getting pain in my left iliac bone. I would not have noticed anything during the radiation therapy today if I had NIH had not taken 3 bone chips out of my left iliac bone, because my brain now knows where it is and knows what it feels like. So had I not had that, I probably wouldn't have noticed anything at all. But now it's a little painful, and I've taken a couple of Tylenol, and I still feel the pain. So I'll see what happens. The doctor told me that it might last for a couple of weeks after the radiation. I go again on Wednesday and on Friday. He already told me last week that it would only be 3 sessions, not 5 sessions of SBRT. So that's basically my update.
Well, good. I have one thing to share with you, that Len Sierra now is a compadre of yours, because he is now running a physical group, us two support group in the winter at in Sarasota, Florida.
Very good.
So
Where are you, Joel? You're in Minnesota, no?
No, I'm in Northern Virginia, but I have a condo in South Beach for the last 12 years. I go down there one week a month when it's cold up here in Virginia. I go down there 1 week a month from like October through March. So I'm going again on the 18th of February.
South Beach, Miami.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Are you interested in going to that Villages prostate cancer conference?
That's in March, right?
Yeah, March 21.
Yeah, I might even be down there then. I did visit the Villages a couple of years ago because I was considering buying in there, but I had not done so. I didn't know either way. I mean, I haven't made up my mind either way yet.
Okay, that's right. You're in Virginia now.
Correct, but I'm going back to Florida for 1 week in March, so I may very well be, most likely will be there for the 21st. I'll be in South Beach on the 21st, most likely.
Okay. Maybe you'll get to meet Bill Franklin if he goes.
Very good, yeah, maybe so.
Okay. When will you be completed with your radiation now that you're just having 3 treatments?
I go next Wednesday and next Friday, and that completes me. And I just looked at my plane ticket for Ren, and I'm going from the 11th to the 18th in March, and so I'm not going to be there on the 21st.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move along. Les, what's on your mind today?
Okay, just a brief comment. I had a recent blood test, had commented on it before. There was just monitoring it. The last blood test was the PSA was 0.10, which they claim is barely detectable, and the testosterone is inching up slightly up to 398. So I'm keeping checking on it every 6 weeks to monitor the PSA.
Okay.
Keeping at it.
Well, I mean, I think first of all, it's good that your PSA is steady, and it's good that your testosterone, is back up now around the 400 mark. And are you feeling better for that?
Yes, but not as good as I had hoped. It is improving, however, but I guess I was hoping for a little bit more.
We got to get you exercising, Les.
Well, I exercise 3 times a week. I didn't today because we were at a funeral, but
Okay.
otherwise we go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay. Okay. Are you doing a little weight and a little aerobic?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, as you feel stronger, you'll wind it up. But I'm glad to hear that it's steady, and that your PSA is staying low. That is good. Anybody have any questions for Les, or for that matter for Joel? I forgot to ask if anybody wanted to ask Joel about his SBRT, his targeted radiation, his spot radiation.
Yeah, Joel, sorry. So you had only one session so far of the SBRT. How far apart are the 3 sessions being scheduled?
Every other day. So basically this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
And that's all I know right now. He said that he was concerned about a nerve bundle that he looks out for during radiation, and my nerve bundle was far enough from my left iliac bone that he didn't have to worry about doing it in 5 sessions. So that's why he's giving me 3 sessions.
And even if you still have bone pain there, they're going to go ahead with the next 2. They're not going to wait a little bit.
Well, they don't even know about my bone pain yet because it just happened an hour ago. So I don't. I'll tell them when I get there on Wednesday and see what they want to do. But he asked me if I had bone pain before the treatment, and I said no, I didn't. I'm aware of, as I said earlier, I'm aware where the iliac bone is because of the biopsy.
We're trying to run a project in your legislative district number 11.
Go ahead, Peter.
Les, how long have you been off ADT now?
I think the last shot was in beginning of our first day of March, so it expired probably in the 7th month. So I've been off for quite a few months now.
And you weren't on any other ADT drug, secondary one?
No, I am not.
Okay, good.
One other question I had for Rich, you asked about the exercise. I am still having problems when I exercise that I get faint. That some of the machines, when I get off the machine, I have to hang on to something or sit down. And I don't know why. I don't feel that I'm exercising that much. I'm not really straining, and I still get to the point where I feel faint a lot of times, and I don't know why. That doesn't seem right to me.
Have you discussed your general practitioner?
I've gone through. We discussed this a while back, and I've gone through a whole bunch of things in the last several months. Went through, well, colonoscopy, that wouldn't apply, but breathing test, lung capacity, chest x-ray, EKG. They did a CT imaging on the chest, did the stress test, the physical one, not the chemical, so forth, and they still found nothing. I couldn't find anything that they thought that would explain it.
And is your blood
counts are normal?
Yes.
What, Peter? What did you ask if his blood pressure was normal?
Blood counts, like is he anemic at all? That hits me.
Yes. What about your blood pressure?
Good.
Okay. Well, you know, and you've told them specifically about this issue.
Yes. And they can't explain it.
Okay.
Well, Les, when you're on the machine and you're feeling a little dizzy, are you able to monitor your heart rate?
Yes. On some of them, there's a few I do. Yes.
So it's not too high.
No, I don't think so. On the elliptical, it's gotten up to maybe 130, 135.
Maybe you can keep it below 130, see if it makes any difference.
Yeah, the places where I really notice it, they don't have a sensor for testing the respiration rate or the pulse rate.
So is this happening when you're doing weights or when you're doing aerobic?
Or aerobics.
Aerobic.
Oh, come to think of it, you know, most of these are, you know, we call it weights, but they're actually, you know, like spring weights, or, you know, it's not like lifting weights. It's a mechanical machine doing it.
Right. But I mean, but you're noticing it on the aerobic and not on the resistance.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think it's been both.
Okay.
Are you breathing from your upper chest, or are you breathing from a full belly when you're exercising?
Well, that I don't really know.
One thing you might try. Now, I'm not a doctor. I am not a medical professional, but some of the techniques that have been shared with me would be to, you know, breathe in just even before you start exercising. Just breathe in slowly and have your belly expand, your lower belly expand, and then breathe out softly, but through pursed lips, almost like you're whistling, but you're not whistling. And what that will help you to do is that'll help you to fill your entire lung with air. Frequently, we're only breathing from the top of our lungs. So we might be oxygen deprived, which could cause faint-headedness, lightheadedness. But you know, try to be a full breather.
Okay, they had done some testing like that when I was doing the stress test, and they checked the oxygen level, which was fine. I don't know if that makes a difference.
It sounds to me like you're doing all the right things in terms of getting the right medical advice. The only thing I think is important is that do you have a trainer when you go to the gym, or do you just work on your own, Les?
Just work on my own. We went through some of the Live Strong, I had broken my ankle halfway through, so I dropped out. But
Yeah.
so we had essentially a trainer, community trainer, let's say, for a month or so. Anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, I just think, you're aware of it. We don't have enough knowledge here to solve this one, but I think as long as you're aware of it, and you just have to ease up if you're feeling the symptoms. But I don't think that we're smarter than any of the docs that you've seen.
Okay, I will try to see, but about my breathing to see if I can monitor just what I'm doing, see if that will make a difference. Because I've tried everything I can think of, so I'm willing to try it.
Okay. So let's move along to the Eastern Front to Mr. Jackson, and what's the update with you, Mr. Jackson?
I see my radiation oncologist tomorrow, so I had a blood draw last week. Beginning of September 18, PSA was 0.6, testosterone was 351. Last Wednesday, testosterone was 353, and PSA was 1.9.
Okay. So let's throw that one out to anybody that would like to give some thoughts to Rich.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe you should be seeing a medical oncologist, not a radiation oncologist. What do you think, Rick?
Well, the radiation oncologist has been monitoring Rich right the way through. And this is kind of the first sense that there might be an issue. At the same time, Rich, you came off.
I had HDR, brachytherapy,
right,
and 25 external following it with a year of ADT. So there's expected to be a PSA bounce.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get my arms around. When did the PSA, when would the hormone therapy have worn off?
Should have been pretty well, at least starting to decrease December of 18.
So, and what I'm seeing, what I've got here is 919, you were 0.6, and you say that this one gave you a reading of 1 point what?
1.9.
1.9. I mean, I'm just going on my own experience, and I never had big increases. It increased gradually almost every month for 11 months, but there was never a big jump like that. And so, a jump might concern me, and I don't necessarily disagree with Len. You might want to discuss with your radiation oncologist whether you shouldn't bring a GU med-onc on board.
The knee-jerk reaction for the GU med-onc is ADT. And everybody on this call knows that. That's what he's going to say.
Well, he may say chemo, which maybe you want to hear even less, but it may not be ADT, more ADT.
Have you done a PSMA scan yet?
No, not yet.
He may say that, which you want to do before you start any kind of ADT. Tell me again what the time lapse was between the last number. Rick said 0.6 and
Points.
1.9. When was the 0.6?
February of 19 was 0.1. June of 19 was 0.2. September of 19 was 0.6. And last Wednesday, so February of 20 was 1.9.
So it's over 2 months doubling time. It's I wouldn't be super concerned about it. You know, it's September, October, November, December. It's like 3 to 4 months, 4 months doubling time. It's not the worst situation, but you might be eligible for a PSMA scan if you're concerned. And that's if you can get into a trial someplace on the East Coast or something. It's not going to cost you anything, and it'll give you pretty accurate information if something's going on. You're in the range for a good PSMA scan, but you might talk to the radiation doc or a med onc about that. But you don't want to start ADT before you explore that possibility.
Yeah, we got to take, before ADT, there would be quite a few pictures taken. So either
Right.
PSMA or some additional scans to see sort of what's there. But the unknown part of this is HDR and external beam. 18 to 24 months, a bounce, and a bounce could go up to 2 to 3, is not unexpected.
Right.
So this could simply be the natural progression and nothing's wrong. So that's the flip side of the coin.
Yeah, my concern with that, Rich, is that it's gone up 3 times in 5 months. It's gone from 0.6 in November to 1.9 in February. And I think that what you have to drill down with the radiation oncologist is, if there is a bounce, what is usually the shape of that bounce? Is it a linear bounce, or is there an exponential end to it? I think that's really where your question should be focused tomorrow. And if there's any suspicion this could be recurrence, then I absolutely agree with Peter, and that you should be looking at some PSMA sensitive scanning. So, you need to track down, or we can help you, whatever it is, but try and find PSMA, a gallium-68 or something similar that might be available for you, so that we can see if there is anything there or not.
Okay.
What were you thinking?
The scans were definitely something that we'd have talked about. The urologist I saw in September, depending on what my testosterone had done, his knee jerk was ADT. That was his answer.
Yeah.
We're kind of we're swapping out between the two of them, keeping an eye on things. Medical oncologist haven't had a need for one yet.
Okay.
The radiation oncologist was a primary treatment doctor, so he should be more familiar with, if it's a bounce, what the shape of it may be, kind of what to look for, possibly increase the frequency for the testing, and basically sit on our hands for a short time longer.
Hey, hi,
Larry.
sorry, I keep like butting into the middle of a sentence. So, Rich, what I was thinking was, although there is a knee-jerk reaction you're expecting from a medical oncologist, I don't see the reluctance to starting to see one for a second opinion, even if you're not going to, if you're going to take this scan approach, this weight approach, this look at the pattern of the, is it a bounce? Isn't it a bounce? You know, what are the typical patterns for bounces? How is this trajectory going? And all of that, that all makes sense. And that's something I think the medical oncologist could watch also. And I don't know. I would think that I'd want to see a top medical oncologist just to get them an opinion and get them on board. Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go to ADT or that's what they're going to say and then you're going to follow that. I think it's not so simple. It doesn't sound so obvious. And I had a question. Did they ever try like something like Casodex or bicalutamide? I mean, did they ever
But
talk about that?
I had Casodex prior to initial treatment that ran for the entire time I was on
Oh, all right.
receiving radiation.
Yeah.
So from December of 17 to March of 18 was Casodex and Lupron.
Oh,
And
so
then from March of 18 to December of 18 was Lupron or Eligard.
I didn't realize that. So I'm still back to my initial idea of what's the expense of seeing a medical oncologist and getting an opinion. And I guess you have somebody on board probably already in mind. Or did you do all of that through your radiation oncologist and your urologist?
Prior to initial treatment, when I was still researching, I did discuss it with a medical oncologist. And the best one in the area knows how to read a book. And his limitation is it said it in the book, that's what we're going to do.
Well, that sounds like a limitation.
That's kind of the same impression I had. There are other people that kiss his feet and would drop their cloak in the mud puddle so he didn't get his shoes dirty.
No,
I have a slightly different opinion of him.
Yeah, that's not the medical oncologist that I was thinking of. I don't have somebody specifically in mind, but somebody that you talk to, you discuss, they take all your questions, they form their opinion, they give you your options that they see, and they start to follow your case from a distance. That you like it. It's worth traveling to see one once at least, like when I went to Dana-Farber at first or something. That's my opinion. Why not have that visit? Okay, that's all.
And that's probably what I'll end up doing. Is that's one of the questions for my doctor tomorrow is a medical oncologist. And the East Coasters, they're not quite thick as fleas on a dog's back, but they should be close.
Mm-hmm. So, Rich, a couple of things. Based on, well, I'll let you. I would recommend you speak to Jerry Deans. I don't know how thrilled he's been with the supposedly the GU medical oncologists at Virginia Commonwealth. I know he's been there, but if your red onc suggests Virginia Commonwealth, check it out with Jerry.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's been that happy with them, to be honest. And he does know them. He knows them very well. He knows a couple of people there. Maybe for the purpose of just getting an initial reading, but I don't think they would be the right person if you needed somebody in the long run. From where you are, it's probably a choice of either Duke, Johns Hopkins or possibly George Washington. But again, there are a couple of people at George Washington, but they've never really sort of struck me as being really great. We know Duke and Hopkins are very, very good in terms of just a consult. You know, don't get ahead of yourself, as you said yourself just before. If you need a PSMA scan, probably the best place, the most convenient for you would be NIH. Len, would Rich qualify for a PSMA at NIH?
Absolutely. However, I don't know if they've wrapped up the trial or if they're still recruiting, but it's certainly worth looking into.
Okay.
Because Len, that's where Len went.
I can send
Joel,
you my contact.
right. And somebody else, Joel, was it you? Joel Blanchette, was it you that went to NIH as well?
Yeah, I was in the same clinical trial. But they told me there, as they used to do, when I tried to join them 2 years ago, when my PSA was 0.3, they said that they were overwhelmed with demand. But they've gone from 4 or 5 men a week to 4 or 5 men a month to 4 or 5 men a week, soon to be 8 men a week by now. So they've upped their quotas, and that, as far as I know, that same clinical trial that Len and I were in is still available. And they're coming up with 2 or 3 more PSMA scan clinical trials with different protocols. And of course, they're coming up, as I said on this forum earlier, that they're also coming up with a theranostics clinical trial that was supposed to take place in January. Whether it started in January or not, I don't know.
So these, the trials that I'm aware of at NIH that I think Len and Joel did is with the 18F DCF PYL, which is a better agent radionuclide than the gallium-68, Rich. They say it's, well, I know Alan Adele seems to think it's the best that's available, or he did. I don't know now. Len, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. But at a PSA of 1.9, I don't think it makes much difference. I think gallium-68 would have no problem picking up a PSA of 1.9.
Okay.
And I think the NIH also has trials for gallium in addition to PYL.
So that might be both geographically and cost-wise a good way to go, Rich.
Yes. Well, anything I look at is pretty much a minimum 4-hour travel, 4 to 6 hour driving time.
Right.
And 7 or 8 if I tried to fly.
Yeah. Yeah. How long would it take you to get to NIH? 4 hours?
To get up to Bethesda, Walter Reed, yeah, about 4. It's on the north side of DC from here.
Right. But these scans are only 2-hour deals, so I mean you can do it all in one day. It doesn't incapacitate you. It's not bad.
Okay. Well, the guest house at Walter Reed's actually pretty comfortable.
There you go. All right. Well, let's see what the guy says tomorrow. Or is it a man or a woman, your Radon?
Male.
So let's see what the guy says tomorrow. But I do think that probably the 2 issues to drill down on are, the shape of the bump, and whether the sort of exponential pattern he's used to seeing that in a bump, and then where you could get a scan, and then those are the first two bridges to cross, and then we go from there.
Okay. It'll be an entertaining discussion.
I'm sure it will. Have you write your questions down and give him a copy. That way everything gets answered. But you know that.
I'll find my crayons.
Okay. Give me a call afterwards, Rich, if you feel up to it. Please.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything? Anybody else who's experienced recurrence and has anything they'd like to add to what we've already said to Rich? Okay. All right. Moving along, Mr. Anderson, you are up.
Well, I know you and Lynn know kind of the results from my most recent lab work, but I'll kind of share it with the group. You know, in the beginning of the year, my labs came back at PSA of 5.92 and testosterone was 24. Then the beginning of the month, my labs came back and my PSA was 8.7 with testosterone of 11. During this same timeline with Rick's direction, I went ahead and got this ARV7 test. The blood was sent out on the 29th, so it's going to take a couple weeks before I get it back. And I put this information forward to Paul Korn at MD Anderson over the weekend or Sunday after the game, just to ask where he thought I should go at the moment. I'm kind of waiting on his reply. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm sure he's going to want to wait for the information on the ARV7 test. I don't know if I continue enzalutamide for another 30 days, even though the bloody stuff doesn't work for me, or if I switch to another, second line prior to getting the results for the ARVs. I don't know. I did, in fact, per his request, swap out Lupron for Firmagon. I got the 2 shots into my gut this morning, so along with an Xgeva shot. I doubt very much that, Firmagon's, my testosterone level's pretty low at 11, so I doubt very much it's going to make any difference on the enzalutamide as a second line. But per Paul's request, that's what I went ahead and did. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody have any thoughts for Ken as to where to go on this?
Well, I'm just curious, Ken, how did the Firmagon shots experience go for you? I was not a fan.
I must admit the amount was quite a bit the first round, and I debated whether or not I needed 240 milligrams, 2 shots, since my T levels were already low. But per the standard protocol for starting this drug, they give you a bunch of it.
Right.
It's like, hey, my T levels are already at 11. The standard monthly injection is 80 milligrams. And I said, why don't you just give me 80 milligrams, not 240 milligrams? But they insisted, so I got 240 milligrams. So I got 1 shot on the left and 1 shot on the right, and they're sore. I mean, I would say, yeah, they're sore. Other than that, nothing. I don't have a real big belly, so there wasn't a lot to shoot. But they're sore from primarily just the amount of stuff they injected through. So I don't imagine it'll be too much of a problem.
Oh, you may be one of the lucky ones who doesn't experience injection site reaction, redness, swelling, and pain, which could be a couple of days. But sounds like you reacted very well.
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Not sure what to do with this PSA rise though. You know, it's been going up now for, I got a little, as most of you know, I got a little response out of enzalutamide 3 months ago. And I don't know if Paul's thinking this is a flare or what he's thinking. But I guess this ARV7 test will help, you know, define flare or just doesn't work for me. I know my local med-onc had stated that she was not going to place an order for enzalutamide, and I asked her what she was going to do instead, because I only have like 9 days left on enzalutamide, and she didn't have a reply. She said she'd wait for Paul. So she's not going to give me anything? Like I'm just going to do Firmagon and then wait for the ARV7 test or until she gets a directive from Paul? I don't know. You know, I don't think enzalutamide is working for me, so I don't think it really will matter. So I don't know. You know.
Well, you've only had the one bump from your last measure of PSA. Is that right? First your enzalutamide caused your PSA to go down, and then the next time you checked it went up, but you haven't checked
ago.
4 months ago?
Yeah, I had 3 months of rises.
Oh, you were checking monthly?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've gone monthly from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So I've pretty much had, you know, 7 months of rises, maybe even 8, with one exception. When I first started enzalutamide, it dropped to 2.4 from like 3.6. And then shortly thereafter, you know, 3 months ago, it started going up again. So I really don't know I don't know. Hopefully,
And how long were you on Zytiga?
I
Or were
was
you?
enzalutamide.
No, were you on Zytiga at all, or you just went straight to enzalutamide?
Straight to
Yeah.
enzalutamide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Paul had mentioned originally prior to making this statement about Firmagon that he thought the switch might be abiraterone with prednisone because the mechanism of action is a little different. So, but then he switched it up and said, let's try Firmagon to see if it lowers your T levels for 1 month. But I don't think he was anticipating taking me off enzalutamide. I was thinking I think he may still do that. He may leave me on enzalutamide 1 more month just to see whether or not Firmagon does anything, which it probably won't in my head, but I'm not him, so I don't know.
So the ARV7 test, does that eliminate all the MIDE things like apalutamide and darolutamide and enzalutamide?
You know, per Paul, it's a 70%er, 70% or 75% of the guys, yes. There's a small, and they at MD Anderson don't use it. At least his comment to me was they don't use the RV7 test to limit any of the second line treatments until they fail. So whether he will or he won't, I have no idea. He didn't answer my question a month ago whether or not it was a predictive marker or a course change marker, if in fact it comes back positive. So I don't know if at this point when the result comes back, if it is positive, if he'll say none of those work and I have to go on to like cabazitaxel or some other treatment, I don't know. I just have to wait and hear from him.
Let me tell you what I understand here. There are people that respond to the drugs, the IDEs, the IDE drugs and the abiraterone for a while, anywhere from 4 weeks to 4 months, and then they fail. And most of the time, the reason for that is because they are ARV7 positive. The concern with the ARV7 positive test is that it produces false negatives, but that's false negatives. In other words, it comes out that you're not ARV7 positive, but you still fail. And one of the reasons for that in the past has been the nature of the test. So the Johns Hopkins test was not as good a test as the Genomics Health test, or it's not Genomics Health anymore, it's Epic Science. And because they test at the nucleus. So you may have been negative around the cell where they were testing, but you were not negative in the nucleus of the cell. So I think that when we're talking about these percentages, it's basically, we're talking about men who show that they are negative, or show that they are, some men show that they are positive, but they still respond, and vice versa. My feeling with, in Ken's case, is that, and this is just a gut feeling, I don't think he's going to respond to any of these drugs. The darolutamide, we found, Jake found, and I think Jake is now with us. Is this true, Jake? Are you with us? Yes, he's there. I don't know. He may have his microphone switched off.
Yeah, I'm here.
Right. But how you feeling, Jake?
Not good.
Okay, sorry.
So I'd rather just listen tonight. What was the question?
Yeah. The research that you found showed that darolutamide worked even if you were ARV7 positive. But that was in a mouse model, correct?
I'm not even sure if it was in a mouse model. I think it was a theory.
Okay.
They didn't say anything about ARV7. They just mentioned some other ARs that don't seem to be affected by that the darolutamide is effective against some of the ARs, whereas enzalutamide, abiraterone are not.
Just to keep going, when Joe Blanchette asked Antanarakis the question, Antanarakis said darolutamide would not work if you are ARV7 positive. So probably means that you have to rule out second line anti-androgens. So if they're off the table, what occurs to me is certainly Jeftana, cabazitaxel, especially since, Ken, you got a response from docetaxel. So that might be a definite possibility. And then, you know, there are all these bispecific immunotests that are going on. And I don't know what they're doing down at MD Anderson, but they've got to be doing something. And so that's a whole area of possibility. And then the lutetium tests. The lutetium, if there's anything going on with lutetium.
Yeah,
Or another type of
Logan Theus has a trial with lutetium.
Sorry, what did you say?
Logan Theus has a trial with lutetium per Paul.
Okay.
He didn't think it was a good fit, you know, a couple months ago for me, but maybe today that'll be different.
Could be. So, you know, there are some things out there. There's a bunch of stuff out there. I mean, this is not, don't think of this as being the end of the road.
Rick, if you remember last week, Alan Adele said that he didn't think apalutamide or darolutamide were affected by the AR. Because you remember I made a comment that I said that I might be a good guinea pig for that, for the apalutamide. And I don't know where he didn't go into detail, but he did say that he didn't think they were affected by the AR like enzalutamide and abiraterone are.
I don't recall that. It would have stuck in my mind. I mean, I do know that I'm pretty certain apalutamide is affected by is not going to work in the face of the ARV7 mutation. And we know that Antanarakis thinks that darolutamide won't work.
Yeah, I can honestly say that I'm not going to try to be the GU med onc. I'm going to let Paul give me his information and give me some directions. I probably will. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do think that this ARV7 test is going to be an important test, and it's going to direct the pattern of your next treatment. I mean, if it turns out that, you know, you're ARV7 negative, then abiraterone might be a really good option.
I know, but you already said there's a bunch of false negatives. So how can you? I mean, I guess the test is justifiable.
Because
I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. I don't want to beat a dead horse.
No,
So.
we're not saying that, Ken. What we're saying is that if you came back as ARV7 negative, let's just grasp that and assume that it's not a false negative, because it may not be, because because you're testing the nucleus.
Right. And I did get that switched with your. I did. I got it switched from.
Right.
Yeah, one to the other.
But we hopefully then you could try abiraterone, and you'd know within about 30 days whether the abiraterone worked. But it wouldn't be a dumb move to try abiraterone if it did come back negative.
Gotcha. Should I just let these 15 or 20 days slide and not have any second line? What would you do?
I'd use up my enzalutamide, and I'd ask Paul Korn whether he wants me to stay on it or not, and I'd go with whatever he says.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd get on their case and tell them you only have whatever it is, a week or two left of this stuff, of the enzalutamide, and you need to get on to something else. I mean,
I did it tonight, Peter. I did send him a pretty 3-pointed blunt email with, you know, those questions. So
yeah,
not too much information, just one-liners. So
yeah, it wouldn't take him long to order a different drug and get it rolling down the system, so you don't have a lapse, and you can try something else.
Right.
Well, keep us posted. What's the timeline on the ARV7? You did it last Tuesday, did you not?
Yeah, they said 9 to 14 days.
Okay, so hopefully by the end of this week.
Correct.
It's already been 7 days now.
Yep.
So hopefully, do they have a website, or do they have is there any guide on their website?
You know, I had it ordered through my local med onc. I don't know. I'll have to look and see. I didn't look, and I don't even have the report number, but I'm sure I could call and get it.
Yeah, you can check in with them. We'll keep the faith, and you know, I just think we can't really do too much until we know the result of this ARV7 test, and I don't think he's going to order anything until he sees the result of the ARV7 test, and I think that's going to be the key. So,
all right.
Okay. Anyone else for Ken? Okay. Bob Bordiger.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Well, it's 3 months since surgery for me now, and just to fill in what my situation was, I had been spent about 12 years having inconclusive biopsies and rises in PSA, and finally, they found Gleason 9 after a big rise in PSA to 29.8. And I immediately went on Casodex and Lupron. Well, Casodex first and then on Lupron to shrink the tumor, and then had my prostate removed. The Lupron was like 6.5 months ago, and it lasted a pretty long time, probably most of the 6 months on me anyway. So we've been doing some PSA tests. It's been less than 0.1 every month on the regular test that I had at Kaiser. And then I've also gotten ultrasensitive PSA testing done twice. What I was looking for was to see if I would be in a group, in the same group as a group that had been under a long-term test at Johns Hopkins of ultrasensitive PSA for patients that had a prostatectomy and then found some lymph node involvement. I had some involvement in one of my lymph nodes, a small amount. And it was from that test shown that if you had an ultrasensitive PSA of less than 0.03 after 3 months, then the chances of having a recurrence were much less, significantly within 10 years than if they were more than 0.03. So that's why I wanted to have this ultrasensitive done. So I just had it done at the 3-month mark, and my test showed 0.016. So that sounds good. However, I had it tested a month before, just to sort of establish a baseline of some sort, if I could, or see what was going on. And a month ago, my ultrasensitive was at 0.006. So in a month, it appears to have gone, if you believe that the sensitivity of the test is, accurate, from 0.006 to 0.016. So that has me a bit concerned. Meanwhile, my testosterone is starting to rise, and a month ago it was at 406, and I had it tested again last week, and interestingly enough, probably by mistake or something, my doctor had ordered 2 tests, so they took 2 vials of blood from me, and anyway, my testosterone was measured twice, and one of the measurements was 610, and the other measurement was 653. That was sort of interesting. But it's gone up in the last month, and I don't know if that has any effect on the ultrasensitive PSA reading or not. I'm happy with the number, but I'm concerned about the increase in a month, and I'm not sure about how accurate the ultrasensitive PSA is when it goes into the thousandths, as this one does, as opposed to the hundredths or the tenths. And so anyway, I wanted to see if anybody had any thoughts about any of that.
Well, Peter may well, because Peter deals with this quite a bit on his call. And so I'll come to him in a minute. But the one thing that I always tell people, and has been confirmed many times, is that the accuracy of these ultrasensitive tests is not very high. there's a lot of variance in them. Same
Yeah.
thing is true in the testosterone, with the testosterone tests. They can vary a great deal, as you see yourself, 2 vials taken at the same time.
Right.
And it happens with the testosterone very frequently. It also can vary time of day when you take it. But the PSA test, you know, it's the ultrasensitive is a good test to use for somebody who's had surgery and to draw results from over time in a series. But you know, the one-off tests, I mean, if we saw you going from 0.006 to 0.016 to 0.03 to 0.05, you know, that I would say would be meaningful.
Right.
But you know, there is a lot of variance. So I don't know, Peter or Len, do you know how much variance there is in these ultrasensitive tests?
I think you've got to track it for a while, especially at these low levels. I mean, 0.06 to 0.006 to 0.015 or whatever it is
0.16.
Yeah, I wouldn't put a lot of credence in that. It's still very, very low. It's essentially undetectable still. And,
right.
I wouldn't put a lot into it. You know, I just start graphing it and tracking it. I don't know how often you're testing, but you know, just
once a month.
Yeah, just watch it once a month. Have you done a Decipher test at all?
No, they didn't do that one. I don't think.
I'd ask if they can run a Decipher test on your tissue, because that'll. I mean, that's not foolproof, but it gives you an idea of a possibility of recurrence, where you stand in it. You know, whether you're more at risk for recurrence or less at risk for recurrence in a certain time frame. It's good information. It's not a bad test, and insurance probably covers it. So you might talk to your surgeon about that.
Okay. How do they do that test?
They send a tissue sample to a lab, and they run it against a lot of other compared to a lot of other cases, and get an idea of you know, your profile compared to other men and the possibility of recurrence.
Where does the tissue come from? Is it do I have to go in for them?
No, you don't have to do anything. They'll automatically assess it from your prostatectomy. They keep this stuff around forever.
Oh, they do keep it. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Peter, I think I mentioned it to him. I asked him about it, and he said that he uses a nomogram instead to be predictive, rather than the Decipher test.
Yeah, well, it's cheaper to use the nomogram, and it's Kaiser we're dealing with. So, you know, I think that the Decipher test is approved by most insurance companies, and it's a question of whether you can get your guy to run it for you or not.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Sorry, I came late to this, but what is Bob's Gleason score?
It was 9.
9.
4,
I don't even
4 plus 5.
That insurance won't cover Decipher for a high risk. That's only for lower intermediate risk.
They covered it for me, and I'm a 9.
Really?
Yeah.
Who's your insurer?
Medicare and Blue Cross Blue Shield is secondary. This was 5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
Were you confirmed as a 4+5 in the post-operative pathology, Bob?
The biopsy results had the 4+5.
Right. You need to find out from your doctor what your final Gleason score was. In other words, because what they do is they check the Gleason when they do the pathology after your surgery.
Right. Well, he's been using 9, so after the surgery, I think, for the nomogram. So I'm guessing that's what it is. But I'll ask him specifically about if they did that after the surgery as well and came up with an independent number. That's
Yeah, just ask them. I mean, they will have come up with a number. Ask them if the 4+5 was confirmed in the post-op. I mean, it could have become, God forbid, it could have been 5+4, for example.
Yeah.
Because we're just saying 9. So you do need to check with him. And it's also very good to have for your records a copy of that post-op pathology and the surgical report.
Okay. Thanks.
Just so that you have it. Anybody else want to talk about the ultra sensitive test and any thoughts for Bob? Do we have? I'm looking to see who else other than Peter has had surgery on this call. I don't think we have anyone else that's done surgery other than Peter, Bob.
Right.
And
well, I kind of agree with what you've all been saying about it. That's pretty much what I was thinking. That it's too early to make any kind of real conclusion. But right. I know my doctor feels that if the ultrasensitive keeps going up and it goes up above, say, 0.5, then he's thinking, maybe I should go on to get some treatment. And I'm thinking that makes some sense. But if the doubling rate is fast in the next couple of months, if I'm getting those kind of results, then maybe I'll start even sooner. Were that the case?
But the
so that's my thinking on it.
Doubling rate is not a great indicator with the ultra sensitive. It's fine when we. So it's just because it's just not it's not too accurate a test.
Right. Okay. That helps me. That helps me.
0.1 to 0.02 is not the same as going from 2 to 4.
Right. Sure.
Right. So
great.
I had surgery also, and this is Joel. I had surgery also, and the local urologist here would say that the ultrasensitive test at that low point is just noise. He wouldn't determine anything based on that.
Right.
That's one doctor's opinion.
Right. Yeah, and I think my radiation oncologist has the same opinion too, because when I discussed it with him, he kind of dismissed it.
Right. My experience is that with the ultrasensitive test, once you get to 0.1 and you start showing a doubling time less than 2 months, going up to 0.2, 0.4, whatever, it's indication that there's something on the move. That's been my experience the last number of years.
Right. I think that's the regular thinking. I think that is. Yeah.
Right. You had surgery at a Kaiser in LA?
Yes.
And it's a good Kaiser facility?
Well, my doctor I thought was great, Dr. Finley. I thought he did a great job.
Do they have a good radiation program there?
I think so. The doctor there is Barry Goy that I was consulting with because I was considering that treatment as well as an option.
Right.
But the surgeon, they have a couple of surgeons, but I think he's one of their better ones. And I was very happy with it, and I had minimal effects afterwards. Minimal side effects, and it was very painful for a while, but the recovery was pretty quick, I think,
And you said you had lymph node involvement?
Yes, one lymph node out of the ones that he took, and it was just less than 1 millimeter, and it was low down, close to the prostate, near the bottom of it, whatever.
Okay.
So, I might be okay for a while, but and I'm ready to start treatment again, but I don't want to start unless something's going on, or there's a pretty good indication of it, because I have a chance of of a period of remission. I think.
Well, there was a recent study done. Alan Edel isn't on the call tonight, but he could cite it for you. But this is within the last several months, that suggested that if you delay your there's no difference between adjuvant radiation and early salvage radiation. So if you were to wait 6 months or 8 months and then do your radiation, you're no worse off than if you had radiation after about 6 or 8 weeks. And
Right.
when you speak to your radiation oncologist, ask him about that specific study. I think I have it. I'll look. If I do, I'll send it to you. If not, and you need it, I can get it from Alan Edel. Peter, do you or Len, do you have any information on that?
I can't recall it. No.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, Peter, were you node negative when you were diagnosed?
No. Yes, I was lymph node negative, but they removed a bunch of them, but I had seminal vesicle invasion, so that was removed. So I knew the cat was out of the bag for me. It's just a matter of time.
I'm just wondering because they told me they wouldn't, insurance wouldn't cover Decipher because I was node positive, and I wonder if they did it. They covered it for you because I guess at least technically you were node negative.
I don't know. I don't know. I was kind of,
after all,
fuzzy in those days.
Decipher is supposed to be used for guys, to determine if they're at risk for metastases. So if you're already node positive like I was, they think, well, Decipher's not going to tell you anything you don't already know.
Yeah, and that might be the case for Bob too. I mean, if your doc was to say, "Hey, it's out the capsule, we know it because you had it in the node," that would be a reasonable response, Bob Bordiger.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's basically the likelihood is great, or was immediately after surgery, but this particular U.S. Ultrasensitive PSA might, ameliorate that, or give another point of view that the likelihood is not as great. But whether it's great or not great, I could be on either side of the statistic, depending on my luck. But I guess the only really way to know a little bit more of an idea of what might be going on is to watch those PSA numbers.
Right.
That's all we've got, really, right? And I was one of those people for many years that I really didn't think very highly of PSA or the doctors or their diagnoses. But once I got it, I was forced to change my thinking.
So I want to move on to Peter and give him the last few minutes of the call. But I have found the study I was thinking of. It's called the Radicals study, Radicals RT study, and it was last September. And I will send you the link.
Okay, great.
Okay, and you can chew it over.
All right,
put it in
terrific.
the chat window for anyone else. And Peter, you have the rest of the time, and take as long as you want.
No, I'll keep it brief. So, Bob, I promise you the next time I'm in LA, I'll make time to get together with you.
Okay,
I know you
that'd be
were only
great.
available on that Thursday, and that was the day before I left.
I know I was very busy. You were very busy.
Yeah,
It happens.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'd love to get together with you. We have some similar similarities in our cases. Anyway,
Yeah, I think so.
so 2 hours ago, just before the call, my savior, the UPS driver, pulled up my drive with my second dose bottle of Nubequa. I've been on the phone with these people. I know all of them very well, like Marie and Pam at the Bayer office there, because second time in a row they had my wrong address, and they finally sent the Nubequa back because they didn't know, they couldn't deliver it. I went down to anyway. Long story short, I finally got it today with 2 days to spare. So my question is, I've done pretty well with it. A little bit of nausea in the morning, but other than that, I think it's doing the job. And my question, because I'm still hormone sensitive, and my question is, it's going to be up to my doctor to somewhat his input. But if I don't qualify for an extension of Nubequa, which I've already been turned down, and I don't know whether we can wrangle this one or not, what do I do next? Should I try Erlita? Should I try apalutamide? Should I? I'm going to probably stay on something with chemo, and but I don't know what I should. But now is the time to start working on it, I guess, because I only have a month's supply now. What are people's thoughts on that?
Well, my first question is, what does Dr. Turner say?
Right, I haven't gotten to that yet. I'll work with that, right away this week and talk to him. Yeah, I don't know, but I just, I don't know if anybody's ever done this. You get this 2 months free, and then if you don't qualify or you can't get them to bend the rules, you got to go to something. I'd rather not go back to Zytiga.
Right. So my feeling for me personally would be, if I'm going to be doing chemo, what you're doing, docetaxel and carboplatin, right, Peter?
Right.
Or just docetaxel?
Both.
Docetaxel. I wouldn't push to go with another to layer something else on top of that. I would say fine. I'll worry about it when my chemo's done.
Good idea. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with Rick. Give yourself a break from the second line hormonals and let the chemo do its job.
Yeah, okay.
You'll save on your bone marrow too.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd really be interested to see what, I'd be very interested to hear what Turner says. Has anybody on the call done chemo at the same time as doing abiraterone or enzalutamide? They usually give either or, Peter.
Okay. I hadn't thought about that. No.
That's what they usually do. I don't know what the experience is doing them at the same time. I'm sure that there is a good, I'm sure there's a good history in there of clinical trials, and maybe our buddy in Venice, Florida, will do a little research for you and see what he comes up about people using both at the same time. But I can't think of too many people I know that have done both at the same time, because usually they'll give, now what they do is they give you either chemo or they give you a second line anti-androgen early on, as soon as they see it. but not both at the same time. But your situation is obviously different because you weren't expecting to do chemo.
Right.
So,
Good.
So
Good. I'm glad I asked the question. Good response. Gives me food for thought, and I'll yeah. So I'm gonna meet Wednesday with this med-onc here. I don't know how many guys I have had chemo directed by a different med-onc than the one that's local, but we'll see. I'll negotiate and see if there's buy-in.
hey, Ken Anderson has.
Right. Yeah. Right. I've thought about that. Right.
Ken?
I think he dropped off.
No,
Oh,
I'm
he's
still
right
here.
here.
Oh, he's still here. Sorry, Ken.
No worries. Yeah, Peter, I don't think you'll have any problem.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
Yeah, it's just administering an IV. Someone else is giving the quantity. Do watch the last round though, because how many rounds are you going to go? How many rounds are they going to do?
4 to 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know then. You just have to play that by ear when you get there. Maybe get
Okay.
Turner to tell you how many rounds maximum. You'll probably know as you go along. I found the fourth, fifth, or the fifth and sixth were for me pretty telltaling. You know, it was, even though I was up running around trying to remodel a house, they were pretty painful.
That's what I've seen other people go through, and that's what I hear. Yeah.
What do you
Good
mean
luck.
painful? What was
Not,
painful?
not painful, just, you know, I was lethargic and I needed a lot of rest, and I was definitely a different person on those rounds.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
Knocks you down pretty good. Yeah.
knocked you down pretty good that fifth and sixth round. But I went to work. You know, I was still working then. Surprisingly, everyone said I was walking death, but I didn't know. I didn't see it myself, but they did.
So,
So,
Ken, I asked you last time, but you dropped off before. Did you get any PSA, any positive PSA results from those tangerines and oranges?
oh, I got to tell you, I've been looking for those apple bananas ever since. They're not available in
Okay.
the States.
Well, you got to come back. You got to come back.
Yeah, I do.
So, yeah, I mean, we don't have anybody, I mean, everybody that's done chemo, we got quite a few guys, but they all did their chemo before they did their androgen deprivation, their second line anti-androgen,
Okay.
Peter.
Okay.
So,
I think maybe there are some clinical trials with docetaxel and enzalutamide, but in your case, Peter, they're using two different chemo agents, right? Was it docetaxel and carbo?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so that should be enough.
I hope so.
Give yourself a break, Peter. That's what
Yeah.
I say. All right. Anybody else have anything they would like to say to Peter before we close out the call? We're pretty good. We're only 3 minutes over. Anyone else want to say anything to Peter?
Good
Good
luck.
luck, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a starting date yet, so we'll see.
We will post the all these links as we have been doing that appeared in the chat window, and hopefully we'll have the call up by tomorrow. Don't see why not. And the next meeting is the 11th, Tuesday the 11th. So, and guys, please, if you haven't done so already, please would you give us some endorsements on great nonprofits? We need endorsements this year. And, you know, even if you just say helpful meetings or good nonprofit or whatever it is, but we want that top-rated nonprofit for 2020. So doesn't take you too long. Just go on the website and say something, hopefully nice, but you can say whatever you like.
I just had a concern for Peter. Since Ken Anderson said after chemo his hair came back even thicker, I can't imagine Peter's hair getting any thicker. Maybe it'll cover his whole face.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
Funny
very
as a crutch, Len.
What's that?
Funny as a crutch, Len.
much.
Well, I could use a little more thickness, that's for sure. Maybe I should go on chemo just for that reason.
There you go. There you go. All right, guys. Talk to you.
Yes.
Stay
Keep in
well.
touch.
Everybody
Yes,
on
bye-bye.
Lupron would say the same.
There you go.
This
All
is
right.
definitely a men's group.
Yeah,
All
good night.
right. Good night.
Good night. Good night.